Hello, everyone. Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are going to be sitting with Alison Brie. Just on the hour, going to wait for her to request to join, and then we can get going here. But thanks very much for tuning in. We're big fans of hers here. She was on our cover a few years ago, had Horse Girl earlier this year, has The Rental coming out this Friday. Of course, everyone's a fan of Glow. So we have plenty to talk about today, and really looking forward to diving deep with her. Just give it one moment and we can get started here. All right, looks like we're getting ready to go here. Hey there.
Hi.
I'm Ben Lindsay from Backstage. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where are you calling in from?
Just from our home in Los Angeles.
Good. And you're taking care of yourself, staying safe, healthy.
Yeah. We've been very lucky and we like each other and we've got a pretty solid setup here. So we're doing okay. We're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Well, so excited to be chatting with you today. You have The Rental coming out this Friday from IFC Film. It must have been such a trip to be filming this thing in kind of the middle of nowhere in Oregon. Tell us a bit about it, though, just what the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. The movie is about two couples who are on they rent a home on a home sharing app for a celebratory weekend away. And very quickly the intricacies of their relationships start to affect them, trusts break down, and that makes them vulnerable to some other terrors that are possibly lurking.
Yeah. It's definitely, I feel like any thriller is kind of a high wire act tonally, but this one does take on a lot in terms of the relationship dynamics, but then also the fact that there might be a stalker killer on the loose as well. So
Yeah, it's definitely it's not your normal horror thriller movie. It's definitely much more of a slow burn. It's like it's pretty much a relationship drama that devolves or evolves, depending on how you look at it, into a bit of a horror thriller. And something I love about the way it was written by my husband, Dave Franco, and Joe Swanberg. They wrote it together. And, some of the most terrifying things that happen in the movie really are happening between these couples and are more about their relationships with each other and those relationships breaking down and those trusts breaking down. And there is kind of this great parallel between what's happening in these relationships and as how the couples are then vulnerable to like this outside force.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And as you say, your husband Dave Franco, he co-wrote it with Joe Swanberg. He's also the director of this, so you would know better than anyone. How long has this thing kind of been gestating, and was it always a gift to play Michelle in this as well?
No, it was not. I guess they wrote it, God, they would have written it in 2018, and then we shot it last year in April, May.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in in movie time, it actually feels like it came together pretty quickly, and uh, um, yeah, between the amount of time for them writing it and then putting it out. But I wasn't always supposed to play Michelle. There was a version of the movie before Dave decided he was going to direct it. He was maybe going to play a role in it, the role that Jeremy Allen White ended up playing.
Yes.
And so when he was thinking in his mind as he was writing it and thinking like that he was going to play that part, I guess he thought that it would be kind of distracting to have me playing like his sister-in-law.
Right.
And like that might be sort of a weird dynamic on set, and also just in the movie for people to watch. It could take you out of it a little bit. So once he decided that he was directing it, then pretty immediately after, he asked me to do it, and it felt, in my memory, he says it wasn't this casual, but in my memory it was a very casual scenario of like the two of us sitting on the couch and him being like, oh, so you should probably play Michelle, and me being like, great.
He's a yes at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Jeremy Allen White, you're also co-starred with Dan Stevens and Sheila Vand, who both have actually sat with us for this live interview series. So you're in good.
Oh, great.
Yeah, both so
Trying to
great.
find. Oh,
But I
uh-oh.
love just speaking of your relationship with Dave, and is everything good over there?
I don't know. I have this camera on a little stand, and then I tried to turn it to the side because I just feel kind of dark. I was trying to
Oh,
get a different angle, but then everything fell apart.
all good.
All right, we're still good. We're still good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I love that you and Dave, I mean, in this past year, you've also written yourself with Horse Girl. You directed an episode of Glow. This is his directorial debut. Are you two
Yeah.
kind of each other's cheerleaders in terms of taking the next step?
Oh
Create.
my God. Absolutely, absolutely. I was totally inspired to write Horse Girl by watching Dave write this with Joe.
Hmm.
I, I never thought that I would really write, even though for years I've kind of like, spent some of my free time thinking about movie ideas, and certainly with Horse Girl because it's, um, very loosely based on my grandmother's experience with
Mhm.
mental illness and my fears therein. That's like a topic that I'd wanted to explore for a long time, but I just didn't have the courage to write it. And seeing how excited and passionate Dave was about writing, and seeing him have this great writing partner, I think that was sort of the biggest step of me being like, I could write something. Maybe I just need to find a partner to write it with. And so I ended up, writing it with our friend Jeff Baina,
Mhm.
and we're working on another script right now. And it 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 was really fun because, well, the order was sort of like I directed an episode of Glow, then uh, Dave, and at the same time, it's like Dave's writing the rental, then we start writing Horse Girl, then I direct an episode of Glow, then Dave directs the rental, then I go on to Horse Girl. So
Right.
it was really nice for me to come out of having directed something and have some small amount of perspective on what that takes, what that requires. And in that sense, I was able to be a really great uh, uh, pillar of support for
Mm.
Dave while we were working. And I could relate. Like, it was this cool new way that we could relate to each other, because even though obviously directing an episode of television is different than directing a feature film, but there are still a lot of similar through lines. So I felt like we could speak the same language about it since I had just done it. And then I was able to use a lot of what I learned from watching him, when I then went to produce Horse Girl.
Yeah, yeah. You both know the nature of the beast, as they say, so you can teach each other and be there for each other through that. That's great.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Now, we've spoken with you before here at Backstage. Our audience is kind of that working creator, working actor.
Actors.
What advice do you have for actors who want to make that transition to in that way?
To writing, to creating.
Yeah.
Um, I, I mean, first of all, confidence. It sounds so dumb. It sounds very simple to say, but I think that it's something that I've been working, to build my whole life and will continue to do so. And each of these jobs, even when I look at directing one episode of Glow from day one of shooting to like day six, or the last day of shooting the episode, just watching my confidence grow and going, oh, I know a lot more than I think I know. And especially for women, I think sometimes we're sort of taught that, well, maybe I should study more, or do this more, and do this more before I do the actual thing. Maybe I need more experience. I don't know that this is a way that men think about this stuff.
Sure.
A lot of guys just feel like I can go try it. And I would encourage women to do the same. And I guess just everyone, that to me, fear seemed to be the biggest factor in inhibiting me from doing anything, or kind of going, I don't know if I know enough to do it. And then once I took the leap, I just directed an episode of television that's an anthology documentary series, which is all I can say about it. But still, it was sort of like a different kind of, still a different medium, and one in which I have no experience. And I sort of thought, well, you can't learn until you try. And it's always been important uh, uh, as an actor to take risks, to learn new things. And I think now I'm applying that to other aspects of my career in terms of writing, producing, directing, that it's scary. It puts you in a very vulnerable position, but you sort of have to take the leap in order to you can't do it unless you do it. You know what I mean? You got to just go and do it. But I will say too that for me, it was very helpful to have a writing partner.
Hmm.
I think I just mentioned, so wrote the script with Bana. I'm writing another script with him now. Dave and I just wrote a script together. For me, it's been really helpful to have a person. And I think I would imagine, even if you're writing on your own, to have a great sounding board that you trust, whether it's a really good friend or a manager or whoever. I think that can be really helpful, and to just try not to judge yourself and just try to put the ideas out there. There's going to be a lot of bad ideas, and you kind of got to just slog through them, I think, as
Yeah.
you go to get to the better ones.
Yeah, yeah, it does take a fearlessness. You got to give yourself permission to do it. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you're doing next in terms of getting behind the camera. That sounds exciting.
Thank
Um,
you.
Now, I did want to touch on the actual filming process of the rental. You were in this small town in Oregon, kind of nestled in the woods. Did it ever get pretty real? And were you ever spooked in real life doing
Oh
the thing?
yeah. I mean, I don't have like an epic story, but every night, because we shot for about 5 weeks, and 4 of those weeks were all night shoots.
Mhm.
So we would, and my character sort of the best character in the movie because my schedule was much lighter. I have the character who like goes to bed early,
Right,
and stuff like that. So I wasn't in all the scenes. There were some nights where they have some hellish scenes where they're shooting out on the cliffside. I was like, oh, I'm not in any of that stuff. I guess I have
right,
a couple nights off. Anyway, it was often I was often driving to work once it was already dark, and then leaving while it was still dark in the very early morning. And the drive to set, it's this practical set. We shot at this beautiful house in Bandon, Oregon on the coast, and it's really on this cliffside, and it's really nestled in the woods. So
mhm,
to get there, you're on this main highway, and then you turn onto a dirt road, and then you take that dirt road for maybe 2 miles or more, and it's windy, and there's no cell service, and there's no lights. And for some reason, I guess to just stay in the mood of the movie, I was listening to a lot of true crime podcasts.
okay,
So I'd be driving home, at 5 in the morning, but while it's still dark out, listening to like the story of the Black Dahlia killer and like gruesome details about that kind of stuff with no service, just kind of like, and then we were staying, we're shooting this movie about home sharing apps and possible murders therein, and we were staying at an Airbnb while we were shooting it. So it was just like a lot of layers of driving home by myself. Dave would still be on set shooting, he had a lot more to do. And then getting back to like this little cabin that we were staying in, and walking down these like 30 rickety stairs into darkness. And then the saving grace was that our cat was with us. I brought our cat up to Oregon. So we
okay.
had this great little like family unit. And that was like that I'd open the door by myself, and little Harry would be like, meow.
He'd protect you. He'd protect you.
Yeah.
It's so funny. True crime podcast, though. You don't not want to be listening to that on a dark road in the woods.
It was so funny where at some point Jeremy Allen White, who's in the movie, was like, what are you listening to? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've just been listening to this podcast all about this murder, and it's very dark. And I was listening to all the stuff, and I was like, why, what do you listen to? And he was like, music. I listen to really positive, like upbeat music. I
Yeah.
was like, that's a good idea to switch over.
Yeah. But will you say, whether it was conscious or not, that kind of practice is to get into the mood of the film? Big picture, when it comes to a new project, do you find yourself doing little tricks like that to get into the spirit of it, tap into the character?
Definitely. Oh, definitely. I think for every project, I always have a list of things that I want to watch, or maybe it's stuff I want to read. Um, yeah, I definitely like to get immersed in what's going on. In this case, because it's a horror thriller, uh, I had to just be in constant fright. um, but Dave actually gave us a list of films that he was inspired by while writing it. So the whole cast, we had a great list of like, it was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Get Out and Hereditary and The Shining and Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby was also on our like inspiration list for Horse Girl, so that was a also I've seen it a million times. But
Great
also
movie.
movies. Oh, I mean, one of the best. But also movies like Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, we were watching, and Blue Ruin, kind of these quieter,
Hmm.
character-driven movies, which is very much in the vein of this. And I do the same, I guess, with music too. It's a very actory thing to say, so I feel like this is the place to say it.
But
Um,
do it.
but especially when I have emotional scenes, and this is one of those movies where once it kicks into gear and starts to become intense for the characters emotionally, it doesn't stop. So there are a lot of days where
Mhm.
you're getting to set, and kind of having to maintain this high emotional level for over multiple nights. And so music becomes a big tool of mine. And the frustrating thing that I've found is like I'll keep this list of songs that are like emotionally triggering for me. But what I've found is that they don't work universally. It's
Mhm.
character specific. It has to be about tapping into, as much as like all that stuff helps the vibe and I just like it to kind of keep me in a mode.
Mhm. Mhm.
When it comes down to actual performance, I have to really tap into true character memory, real character building, what's that person going through. And then I can still use music to get me there, but it's so site specific, to the thing where this song that maybe helped me with this other character doesn't speak to this character at all. And, on this movie, I was listening to some Van Morrison song and having this whole backstory about my character's wedding with with Dan Stevens' character. And it was just like this great trigger. I wish I had more rhyme or reason to how I discovered that stuff, but it's always helpful when I can kind of lock into something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
it is case by case too. You're not going to use the same trick that used on the rental for Glow, for instance. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
Huh. In terms of that character building, Glow in particular, I mean, I'm such a fan of the show, and it really does allow you to tap into both the levity of drama and then also vice versa. It is kind of this weird fusion of tones and gives you a lot to play with as an actor. Have you always has that ability always come natural to you to kind of
Mm.
do the comedy in tandem with the drama?
I think so. I thank you. It's a great compliment. I think so. It probably a lot of it comes from like this the way that I see myself for a long time was very different than, I think people really see me as this comedic actor. I and I do too. I don't know. But I went to theater school, and
Hmm.
at Cal Arts, I really got to do it all because, it's theater, and Cal Arts is such a great school. And a lot of the work we were doing, we did classical work. We also did some really avant-garde stuff. And in the world of
Hmm.
theater, I just think that there are so many possibilities of range in what you can show, especially in theater school. It's a great time to take risks and do all that stuff. So coming out of theater school, I was sort of like, I'm a dramatic actress, ready to be this like dramatic ingenue, um, and just approached every role in that way. And even I feel like when I was auditioning for Community, I wasn't like, let me find. I mean, I did right out of college take classes about how to audition for comedies because I
Hmm.
kind of didn't know the way to read a TV script and like know that it's joke, joke,
Oh
joke.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but even after taking that class, it was sort of helpful to learn the language of television comedy. But ultimately, I felt like I had to tap back into what makes me unique, what makes the
Mhm.
way that I look at a character unique to me, and the way that I play that character unique to me. And so I do think that I approach all characters the same, be it comedy or drama, and it's just always coming from a place of who is this person and what's their motivation and what are their relationships to the people around them. And so again, like even auditioning for something like Community, I guess what I was going to say is that I don't go in that room being like, I got my jokes ready. I'm kind of
Right.
like, she's a drug addict. She was a loser in high school. She's very self-conscious. She's very high strung. Let
Hmm.
me just, who is this person and what are the stakes of the situation she's in? And so that is the same across everything. And I feel like then tapping into that, it's really fun for me then to kind of find the humorous moments in things, but how they differ from
Hmm.
project to project depending on the tone of the project. The stuff that we're allowed to get away with comedy wise on Glow when we're in the ring
Hmm.
is very broad, very different from some smaller comedic moments that I have in the rental, and
Right.
they're definitely there, and it was really fun to get to sort of find comedic moments in the rental, but stay within the parameters of the genre and the parameters of like what the movie is.
Right, right. I mean, even in a genre film, the characters that live within it are not stagnant in the way that they operate. So you got to
Yeah,
kind of inform it that way as well.
yeah,
A lot.
yeah.
Well, as we wrap things up here, I'd love to close with our Backstage 5 questionnaire.
Oh,
It's a little rapid fire, just kind of walk down memory lane. Uh, First question is, how did you get your SAG-AFTRA card?
oh, I got my SAG-AFTRA card. I get so nervous about rapid fire questions. Like, I know
It's
the answer.
not daunting, I promise.
I got my SAG-AFTRA card doing a commercial that was a PSA. It was a public service announcement. It was an anti-drug or an anti like teen drinking public service announcement, and it was like a silent commercial in which I played a young girl sitting on, I think I was 18 years old. I was sitting on the edge of a bathtub, like looking at a pregnancy test and crying. And my parents, you could see their footsteps under the door. And then there would just be like written language being like, don't do drugs. It was very confusing. I did it right before I went to college. And then when I got to college, it was airing. And I would see people being like, oh, I saw your like pregnancy commercial. And I'd be like,
Right.
no, I'm pretty sure it's like an anti drug scenario. But it was a fun first job and like pretty wild because I had not really been on any sets before ever.
Mhm.
And it had said the girl is very emotional in this little commercial script. I have no clue what I did for the audition. I've totally blacked it out. But I remember being on set and having the makeup person be like, okay, I'm going to put on waterproof mascara since you're going to be crying in the scene. And I was like, will I be crying in the scene?
Yeah,
Oh, great. I'll be crying in the scene. Okay, great.
it's good of the makeup girl to tell you.
What my motivations were, what my goals were in the scene.
Yeah,
I'm glad she gave me the heads up.
yeah, not bad.
Sorry, I'll be more rapid fire. I know I talk a lot.
One screen performance that every actor should see.
Ooh, an on-screen performance that every actor should see. Let me think. There's so many good ones. I guess I'll say, God, who inspires me the most? I don't know. You know who I love? This is so not the right answer for this question. I have to dig deeper. My instinct is to say Sigourney Weaver in Alien, just because it's one of my all-time favorite movies. Oh, I know. Wait, I have a better answer. I have a better answer. Um, I want to say Holly Hunter in broadcast news,
Oh yeah,
and furthermore, everyone in broadcast news. But Holly Hunter in that movie and in all her movies, it's such a right character study, the levels that she brings to every scene,
hmm.
and talk about balancing comedy and drama and like turning on a dime.
Oh,
She's really brilliant in that.
yeah.
One of my favorite movies.
Though I do,
And I also love Alien because she has a really good arc, and it's
yeah,
like a study in subtlety. But for the first half of the movie Alien, you don't even really realize that she's gonna be the lead of the movie.
right, right.
It's
I
not,
Well, I do like the Sigourney reference because in quarantine, my boyfriend just made me watch Alien for the first time, and with a crime that I hadn't, but it's very good. It's very good,
yeah.
of course.
We also rewatched it in quarantine,
Okay.
and Davey was making fun of me because it was just like I, I love it so much that like it was I've seen it so many times. I was literally like on the edge of my seat being like, did you see that they heard
Yeah,
that they can't get back, or like just
yeah. best way to watch a movie. Um, how about, do you have an audition horror story that you could share with us?
Yes. An audition horror story I have that haunts me to this day um, was for the musical Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
So I was right out of college and just auditioning for everything. And I went on a general meeting with some people at the Center Theater Group, which is like, that runs the main theaters here in Los Angeles, the Amundsen Theater and the Mark Taper and, a number of theaters. So I like had a general meeting with them. And in this meeting, the woman asked me if I could sing. And I said, I can sing, but I don't think I would be comfortable singing in musicals. I don't. I've done plays with music,
Right.
a song here or there and things like that. But I'm not gonna really be in musicals. I don't think. But then I got this audition for Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, and I sort of was like, well, it's an alternative style musical, and if you could prepare like kind of like a rock song or a pop song. And so I was like, oh, great. I'll do Pat Benatar. I do her songs in karaoke all the time. I just put very little prep into it, if I'm being honest. I feel like I like practiced it in my car on the way over. And then it just was the most embarrassing thing I had actually done. I had been the understudy of one musical in Los Angeles at a teeny tiny tiny theater and done a few performances of some weird, it was like a 1950s alien musical. Anyway, so I get into the audition and I see the piano guy is our guy from that show. Or maybe I knew him from Cal Arts. I just know that I knew that guy. I knew the piano guy, which made it even more embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
That like I started to sing the song and oh God, it was just like a total bomb. I can't, and bombing while singing is so much more painful and embarrassing. I feel like at least in a scene you can kind of find your way out and make different choices. Like hearing your own voice not doing what it should be doing was awful. I feel like during one of the musical breaks before my final chorus of the song, I was like, I'm so sorry. And then I continued the song and was like, bye bye. And they've never brought me in for anything ever again.
But you lived to tell, so it's
Yes,
all
I found my niche in film and television
yeah,
instead.
cool. Well, final question for you. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, I mean, it's just going to go back to confidence again. Like, get it under control. Love yourself. Love your body. Don't throw it away. Um, on the flip side, it's something that I'm really enjoying about as I get older and through my experience working on Glow and how that connected me to my body, I have gained so much more confidence and just comfortability in my own skin. And that enables me to take bigger risks in my work. And I think that when I think about like my early work, especially even like early auditions, one of the things I had to learn was kind of to not be seeking people's approval all the time. And that's a really difficult thing, I think, to learn as an actor, because it sort of seems like so much of your work depends on what people think of you. But I remember even in my early days of auditioning, once I kind of changed the way I auditioned from being about like, am I doing the thing that you guys want me to be doing, and changed it to sort of go into auditions with this mindset of like, this is my 5 minutes to give you my performance, and here it is. Here's my take on this, and this is, I feel strongly about it. I've committed to it. Things really changed for me in the ways that I could book jobs, and I think that that's something I continue to have to remind myself. But I wish that I could have been less self-conscious about my body and my
Yeah,
physical appearance when I was younger.
yeah. Well, Glow will help with that. I feel like it has you
Yeah.
hitting the weights and the ring in a way more, so
Definitely.
work. Well, as a final question, I know that season 4 was supposed to go into production. Any indication of when that might start up again?
No, sadly, no. And I think that I just don't think it's going to be any time soon. We did shoot a couple of episodes. It's going to be our final season. So there's meant to be a pretty good amount of wrestling. I feel like I'm not spoiling anything to say that there will be more wrestling on our wrestling show in
Right.
our final season, and that's going to make it really difficult for us to go back. So I do feel like we're going to be in like a later round of
Yeah.
shows that go back.
There exists a form of socially distanced wrestling.
I don't think there is, and I don't know that I want to see it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rather just,
It was entertaining.
we got to find a way that we can, yeah, just make contact.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been great to get to know you a little bit, Allison. Thanks for sitting with us today. And take care of yourself. Stay well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
We'll be in touch. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.